Ladies and gentlemen, confidence is the cornerstone of every man's character. It's what drives him, what pushes him to chase his dreams, what fuels his passion. But what happens when that confidence is chipped away piece by piece? What happens when the very people in his life, particularly the woman he loves, inadvertently or sometimes even intentionally cause him to doubt himself? Today, I want to share 5 key ways that a woman can hurt a man's confidence. And let me be clear, these are not just hurtful actions, they are confidence killers. Publicly criticizing a man's efforts can have a profound impact on his confidence. When a woman openly criticizes a man in front of others, it often feels like an assault on his pride and self-worth. Men are wired to seek respect and recognition, especially from those they care about. And when this is denied or actively undermined in a public setting, it can be devastating. Whether it's in a family gathering, among friends, or in a work social environment, being criticized in front of others makes the experience much more painful than if it were to occur in private. In a man's mind, public criticism sends a message that his worth is not only being questioned, but that others are witnessing it too. It heightens his vulnerability and makes him feel exposed in front of an audience. He's no longer just dealing with an attack on his character, he's facing humiliation in front of people whose opinions matter to him. This kind of public humiliation can create an emotional wound that lasts far longer than the immediate sting of the words spoken. The fear of public criticism can often prevent a man from taking risks or stepping out of his comfort zone in the future. He might second guess his decisions, wondering if they'll be scrutinized or ridiculed by others. If a woman repeatedly criticizes him in front of others, even if her intentions are not malicious, it can make him question whether his actions will ever be good enough. This can lead to feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt, which chip away at his overall confidence and self-esteem. When public criticism becomes a habit, it can affect the dynamics of the relationship. The man might start feeling disconnected, not just emotionally, but mentally as well. He may begin to distance himself, unsure if his partner values his contributions or if she truly sees him for who he is. The emotional safety that should exist in the relationship starts to erode. Instead of feeling encouraged and supported, he feels exposed, vulnerable, and constantly under judgment. The longer this behavior persists, the more it can deeply damage the man's sense of security and self-worth. Every time he steps out to give his best, whether it's trying to solve a problem, make a decision, or do something meaningful for the relationship, the shadow of past public criticism looms over him. He starts to feel like anything he does will be met with disapproval, not just from his partner, but from everyone else around him. Even if a woman feels like her criticism is constructive or comes from a place of care, it's crucial to recognize the impact of timing and setting. While private conversations about areas for growth are necessary for any relationship, doing so in front of others can make a man feel unsupported and isolated. Instead of being motivated to improve, he may retreat, feeling like no matter what he does, it will never be enough to meet expectations. Such experiences leave scars that don't always heal quickly. Even after the criticism has ended, the effects linger in the background, influencing his future actions and reactions. Trust can be undermined, and a deep sense of uncertainty may take root, causing the man to question his value within the relationship and his broader role in the world. Dismissing a man's feelings or emotions can have a significant and lasting impact on his confidence. Men, like everyone else, experience a full range of emotions: joy, sadness, fear, frustration, and vulnerability. However, society often places an expectation on men to suppress their emotional expression, to toughen up or be strong, particularly when those emotions are seen as a sign of weakness. When a woman dismisses these emotions, either subtly or overtly, it deepens the internal struggle a man faces and adds an extra layer of pressure on him to hide what he's feeling. When a man opens up about his struggles or emotions, he is often doing so in a vulnerable moment. It requires courage to admit when he's not okay, when he's hurting, or when he's struggling with self-doubt. For a woman to dismiss these feelings by saying things like, you're overreacting, just get over it, or it's not a big deal, it not only minimizes the emotions he's experiencing, but it can also make him feel unworthy of empathy or support. This dismissal may not always be intentional, but its effects can be incredibly damaging. The impact of dismissing a man's feelings goes beyond just creating emotional distance in the moment. It sends a message that his emotional needs are secondary, unimportant, or even irrelevant. Over time, this can lead a man to believe that he doesn't have a right to express his emotions, especially when those feelings might not align with traditional expectations of masculinity. Instead of feeling safe to share, he may start retreating inward, keeping his struggles bottled up and isolated from the person who should be his closest confidant. This suppression can lead to a number of negative consequences. It increases the pressure a man feels to maintain a facade of strength and control, which can be exhausting. Holding back emotions might not always manifest outwardly, but over time, it contributes to feelings of anxiety, frustration, and loneliness. A man might find himself questioning his own emotional intelligence, doubting his capacity to communicate effectively, or even becoming resentful of the lack of emotional validation he receives. When a woman dismisses a man's feelings, it can unintentionally create an emotional imbalance in the relationship. Instead of being a safe space where both partners can open up and support one another, the relationship becomes one-sided. The man may feel increasingly alienated, unsure whether his emotions are valued, or if he's being seen as weak for having them. The more this happens, the more his emotional confidence deteriorates. He may feel like he's failing in his role as a partner because his emotional experiences aren't recognized as legitimate. Eventually, this dismissiveness might lead to deeper issues of self-doubt and insecurity. A man who feels like his emotions are invalidated might stop being as open in the relationship. He may begin to suppress not only the difficult emotions, but also positive ones, withdrawing into himself even further. What once felt like a trusting, open connection may start to feel more like a facade, with emotional walls growing higher and higher, all because his partner failed to meet him at his emotional level when he needed it most. Comparing a man to other men can be one of the most damaging actions a woman can take in a relationship, especially when it's done frequently or in a way that undermines his value. Men often derive a sense of identity and worth from their achievements, their abilities, and how they measure up to others around them. When a woman compares her partner to another man, whether it's in terms of looks, career success, intelligence, or personality, it creates an immediate sense of inadequacy. The comparison isn't just about what the other person does or who they are, it's about subtly telling the man that he doesn't measure up or that he's falling short in some way. The problem with comparisons is that they remove the focus from the individual and place it on someone else, making the man feel like his own qualities and efforts are not enough. It highlights what he's lacking instead of what he brings to the table, which can erode his sense of self-worth. Even if the comparison is intended to be motivational or to encourage growth, it's more likely to backfire by triggering feelings of jealousy, insecurity, and frustration. A man might start to feel like he is always in competition with someone else rather than being valued for his own unique qualities. Men thrive when they feel appreciated for who they are without the need to constantly measure up to someone else's standards. When comparisons are made, the focus is shifted away from the relationship and onto outside influences. The man may begin to doubt whether his partner values him for his own strengths, or if she's simply settling for someone who doesn't quite meet the ideal. This can lead to deep feelings of uncertainty as he starts questioning his place in the relationship and whether he is truly seen for who he is. Comparisons create an unhealthy dynamic where the man feels he has to constantly perform or meet certain standards to be considered good enough. This sets up a cycle of perpetual dissatisfaction where no matter what he does, it may never measure up to the expectations set by the comparison. It creates a sense of pressure that can be overwhelming, especially when the man is doing his best to succeed in areas that matter to him. If every success or achievement is overshadowed by someone else's accomplishments, it becomes hard for him to feel satisfied or proud of his own progress. In relationships, security comes from knowing that you are valued for your own uniqueness, not constantly feeling like you need to be someone else to gain approval. When a woman continuously compares her man to other men, it chips away at his sense of confidence. He might start to internalize the idea that he is not good enough and that he will never be able to measure up, no matter how hard he tries. This lack of validation from the one person who should be his biggest supporter leads him to question not just his place in the relationship, but his place in the world. Over time, this can lead to deeper emotional disconnection, as the man may feel less and less inclined to invest in the relationship, fearing that his efforts will never be appreciated or that they will always be seen as inferior. The emotional distance that forms in response to being compared to others often results in a lack of intimacy, as trust and self-esteem. A relationship built on comparisons rather than mutual appreciation and respect is bound to weaken, leaving both partners feeling unfulfilled and disconnected. Withholding affection or appreciation is one of the most destructive behaviors in a relationship, especially when it's done repeatedly over time. Men, like anyone else, seek validation and recognition from their partners. Affection, both physical and emotional, plays a crucial role in maintaining their sense of self-worth and confidence. When a woman withholds affection or fails to show appreciation for the things a man does, it chips away at his sense of value, leaving him feeling unimportant or invisible. Men thrive on positive reinforcement. When they invest their time, effort, and energy into a relationship or a task, they want to feel acknowledged and loved. Whether it's helping with household chores, providing emotional support, or pursuing professional achievements, a man often looks for signs of appreciation. Without these, he may start to question whether his efforts even matter. When a woman withholds affection, he is left wondering if his actions are enough or if he is even seen for what he does. Over time, this leads to frustration and resentment as the emotional energy he pours into the relationship seems to go unnoticed. Affection isn't just about physical touch. It also includes verbal expressions of love, admiration, and gratitude. When a man feels unappreciated, he might begin to feel disconnected from his partner. He may try to seek validation elsewhere, or worse, start withdrawing emotionally. The lack of appreciation sends a silent message. What you do isn't good enough. This message can be incredibly damaging, especially when it comes from the person who is supposed to be his closest ally and biggest supporter. It makes him question his worth, not just in the relationship, but in his broader life. If the one person who is meant to appreciate him fails to do so, he might start to doubt his value in every other area. Over time, the withholding of affection can become a cycle. A man who doesn't feel appreciated or loved may start to pull back emotionally and physically, making it harder for his partner to connect with him. This lack of connection only reinforces the distance between them. As this emotional gap widens, both partners may feel increasingly alienated, unsure of how to bridge the gap. The man might become more guarded, fearing that any effort he makes will again go unrecognized, and the woman might feel frustrated, not understanding why the affection and connection have diminished. The withholding of affection also affects a man's self-esteem. When he feels unappreciated, he may start to view himself as inadequate, believing that he is not worthy of love or recognition. This self-doubt eats away at his confidence, making him question his ability to be a good partner, provider, or even a good person. He starts to internalize the lack of affection as a reflection of who he is, leading to feelings of insecurity and emotional emptiness. Even when a woman doesn't intentionally withhold affection, the lack of consistent praise and affection can create a toxic dynamic in the relationship. A man may begin to feel emotionally drained, carrying the weight of uncertainty and loneliness. Without affection, the relationship loses its warmth, its joy, and the sense of emotional safety that both partners need. In many ways, withholding affection isn't just about a lack of physical touch or kind words. It's a silent form of rejection that undermines the foundation of trust and intimacy in the relationship. Undermining a man's decisions can deeply affect his confidence, especially when it becomes a recurring behavior. For a man, making decisions is not just about choosing what to do next, it's an expression of his autonomy, his ability to lead, and his role in the relationship or his life in general. When a woman undermines his decisions, even with the best intentions or out of concern, it challenges his sense of self-worth and ability to make sound judgments. This subtle erosion of his decision-making authority can eventually cause him to doubt his own judgment and feel inadequate in his role. When a woman constantly questions or contradicts a man's decisions, it creates an environment where he starts second guessing himself every time he makes a choice, whether it's in personal matters, finances, or the relationship itself. He might wonder if it will be met with disapproval or correction. This feeling of never being good enough can be demoralizing. A man who feels like his decisions are regularly dismissed or invalidated may begin to hesitate when it comes to making choices. He may avoid taking the lead or asserting his opinion in the future as he starts to feel that no matter what he decides, it will never be right. The act of undermining his decisions can be especially damaging when it happens in front of others. In these situations, a man can feel humiliated and disrespected. Publicly contradicting his choices not only challenges his authority, but also makes him feel exposed, as though his partner doesn't trust or support him. The emotional damage in these situations is compounded because the man not only faces the sting of criticism, but also the fear of how others perceive him. His confidence takes a blow not only from the person closest to him, but from the collective judgment of those around him. Even if the woman's intentions are to offer constructive criticism or a different perspective, the way it is delivered is critical. A man needs to feel that his decisions are respected, even if they're later open to discussion or revision. When criticism becomes constant and dismissive, it's hard for him to feel secure in his choices. Over time, this can lead to a cycle of self-doubt. He may start to believe that he can't make good decisions or that his instincts are flawed, which then lowers his confidence across many areas of his life. This constant undermining doesn't just affect a man's self-esteem in the moment, it can have long-term effects on the relationship. If a woman repeatedly dismisses his decisions, it creates emotional distance. He may start to withdraw, stop making decisions altogether, or disengage from conversations that require his input. The relationship dynamic shifts as the man feels less and less empowered to contribute meaningfully. Instead of feeling like an active participant, he may begin to feel like a passive observer, uncertain of his role and value. In the end, undermining a man's decisions is not just about the specific choices that are being questioned. It's about his sense of control and the trust he places in his ability to navigate life. When this confidence is continually challenged, he may lose faith not only in himself, but in the partnership as well. The more a man's decisions are undermined, the more he feels powerless, uncertain, and less capable of being the partner, leader, or individual he once was. Ignoring or invalidating a man's needs and contributions is one of the most damaging things that can happen in a relationship. Men, like anyone else, have emotional, physical, and psychological needs that should be recognized and respected by their partners. When these needs are consistently ignored or dismissed, it sends the message that he is not important or that what he brings to the relationship doesn't matter. Over time, this erodes his confidence, self-worth, and ultimately the connection he feels with his partner. At the core of every relationship is the need for mutual respect and validation. A man, no matter how strong or independent, needs to feel seen and heard. He wants to feel that his thoughts, his feelings, and his efforts are acknowledged and appreciated. When a woman ignores these aspects of his being, whether intentionally or unconsciously, it creates a void in the relationship. He may start to question whether his presence in the relationship matters at all. When his emotional needs, the need for affection, communication, or just companionship, are disregarded, it often leads to feelings of loneliness and isolation, even when he's physically present. This neglect can also extend to his contributions within the relationship, whether it's his work, his efforts to improve the relationship, or his actions to make his partner happy. Every contribution deserves recognition. When these contributions are taken for granted or when they're dismissed as insignificant, the man begins to feel like he's invisible. It's not just a matter of appreciation, it's about feeling like his presence isn't valued. Over time, this lack of validation can lead to resentment as the man becomes increasingly frustrated by the constant feeling of being overlooked. This emotional depletion can make him question whether it's worth putting in effort if his contributions will never be recognized. A man might begin to withdraw emotionally if he consistently feels ignored or invalidated. He may stop expressing his feelings, sharing his thoughts, or making contributions, feeling that doing so won't make a difference. This withdrawal is not necessarily because he no longer cares about the relationship, but because he feels that his needs and efforts are never truly appreciated. The more his partner ignores these, the less motivated he becomes to continue putting energy into the relationship. He may begin to shut down emotionally, not because of a lack of love, but because he no longer feels like his needs are worth meeting or that his contributions will ever be seen. When a woman dismisses a man's needs, it also negatively impacts his self-portrait. Men derive a lot of their sense of identity from how they are treated by those they care about. When their partner invalidates them or ignores their efforts, it can cause them to feel less valuable, leading to diminished self-esteem and confidence. The cycle becomes self-perpetuating. The more ignored and invalidated he feels, the less likely he is to engage or invest emotionally, which further distances him from his partner. This emotional distance becomes more evident over time, and the trust that once formed the foundation of the relationship begins to erode. Ultimately, ignoring or invalidating a man's needs and contributions creates an emotional disconnect that is difficult to repair. It undermines his belief in the relationship and in himself. The lack of recognition and support, when consistently present, leaves him questioning whether he is truly valued or loved. His confidence takes a significant hit, and the emotional toll it takes on him can extend far beyond the relationship, affecting his overall sense of self-worth and ability to thrive in other areas of his life. Controlling or belittling a man's actions is a behavior that can deeply damage his confidence and sense of autonomy. A man, like anyone, wants to feel that he is trusted, capable, and free to make his own decisions. When a woman attempts to control him or belittle his actions, it can leave him feeling powerless, misunderstood, and constantly under scrutiny. Instead of feeling supported and empowered in his choices, he may begin to feel trapped or inadequate. Control often starts with subtle remarks or behaviors that slowly chip away at a man's independence. It could be in the form of dictating how he should do something or criticizing the way he approaches tasks. Over time, these seemingly minor acts of control build up, and the man begins to feel like his judgment is constantly being questioned. Instead of being seen as an equal partner who has the ability to make decisions, he is treated as someone who requires direction at every turn. This creates a dynamic in the relationship where he no longer feels confident in his actions, as every decision, no matter how small, is overshadowed by the woman's disapproval or interference. Belittling his actions, on the other hand, involves diminishing the value of what he does. This can take the form of sarcastic remarks, dismissive comments, or even outright mockery. It doesn't matter if the intention is to joke or to offer constructive criticism, the effect on a man's self-esteem is the same. When his efforts are constantly belittled or downplayed, he starts to internalize the idea that his actions are not valuable or worthy of recognition. This type of behavior makes him feel small, as though his contributions are never enough, and no matter how hard he tries, he will always be seen as inferior. One of the most damaging effects of controlling or belittling behavior is that it creates a sense of insecurity. A man may begin to question his own worth and his ability to make decisions. He might stop trying altogether, fearing that whatever he does will only be met with criticism or control. Instead of feeling empowered to take initiative or assert his own preferences, he may retreat into passivity, losing the drive to act or to contribute meaningfully to the relationship. This lack of agency can be suffocating, leaving him feeling diminished and disconnected from his own sense of purpose. This behavior also creates a power imbalance within the relationship. Instead of being two equal partners working together, the man is made to feel subordinate, as though his thoughts and actions are not as valuable as his partner. This can lead to a breakdown in communication and mutual respect. He may begin to feel like he has no voice or that his opinions and contributions are irrelevant, which damages the overall trust and emotional connection between both partners. In the long term, this pattern of control and belittling can cause irreparable damage to a man's emotional well-being. As he becomes more and more discouraged by the constant undermining of his autonomy, he might begin to withdraw emotionally from the relationship. He may stop sharing his thoughts and feelings as he no longer feels safe or valued in doing so. His confidence continues to erode, and the man who once felt secure in his decisions and actions may start to question his very sense of self. This sense of insecurity can extend beyond the relationship, affecting how he interacts with others and how he perceives himself in all aspects of his life. Constant criticism can be incredibly damaging to a man's confidence, especially when it becomes a routine part of the relationship. While constructive criticism can be beneficial and help someone grow, when it turns into a constant, unrelenting barrage of negative remarks, it can have the opposite effect. A man who is constantly criticized days as though no matter what he does, it will never be good enough. This breeds feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt, leaving him wondering if he can ever measure up or meet the expectations placed upon him. The first impact of constant criticism is that it creates a sense of helplessness. A man may feel that no matter how hard he tries, he's doomed to fall short of what his partner expects. This feeling of never being good enough leads to frustration as he begins to doubt his own abilities and worth. Even when he puts in effort or achieves something significant, it's overshadowed by the criticism, making him question whether his accomplishments even matter. This repeated undermining of his efforts can diminish his motivation, as he may start to believe that no matter what he does, it will never lead to the approval or appreciation he craves. Constant criticism also affects a man's sense of security. When his actions, decisions, and character are consistently scrutinized, it makes him feel as though he is walking on eggshells, constantly trying to avoid mistakes to prevent further criticism. This sense of insecurity can make him less confident in his ability to make decisions and navigate the relationship. He may hesitate to express himself or take initiative, fearing that any action he takes will be met with disapproval. This hesitation can be paralyzing, leaving him feeling stuck and uncertain in a relationship where he should feel supported and encouraged. Constant criticism erodes the trust and emotional intimacy in a relationship. A man who feels continually criticized begins to distance himself emotionally as he no longer feels safe or valued in his partner's presence. Instead of feeling like a partner who is loved and supported, he may feel more like a project that needs to be fixed. This emotional disconnection creates a barrier between the two people, making it harder for them to communicate openly and honestly. As the emotional distance grows, the relationship becomes more transactional and less about mutual respect and understanding. The effect of constant criticism is not only felt in the moment, but also accumulates over time, leaving long-lasting scars. When a man is regularly criticized, he may begin to internalize the negativity, leading to feelings of shame and low self-esteem. He may question his value as a person, not just within the relationship, but in all areas of his life. The criticism becomes a lens through which he views himself, leading to a diminished sense of self-worth that extends far beyond the relationship itself. This can affect his interactions with others, his performance in various aspects of life, and his general outlook on his capabilities. Over time, the emotional toll of constant criticism may cause a man to shut down completely. He might stop sharing his thoughts and feelings as he no longer feels safe doing so. The relationship that was once built on open communication becomes strained, and the man may retreat inward, unable to express his true self for fear of judgment. What was once a partnership based on mutual support becomes a cycle of negative reinforcement, with both partners feeling disconnected and frustrated. Lack of trust can severely undermine a man's confidence, particularly when it stems from doubts about his integrity, intentions, or actions. Trust is the foundation of any healthy relationship, and when it is broken or absent, it creates a sense of insecurity that can ripple through every aspect of a man's life. If a woman consistently doubts or questions a man's reliability, honesty, or loyalty, it leaves him feeling disrespected and emotionally unsupported. Over time, the absence of trust erodes his self-esteem, making him feel unworthy of love, attention, and respect. Trust is not just about fidelity, it encompasses the belief that your partner will be there for you, that they will act in your best interest, and that they have your back. When a woman continuously questions a man's actions or motivations, it signals that she does not believe in his ability to be truthful or reliable. This constant suspicion can lead to him feeling like he is constantly under surveillance, unsure of how to act without being accused or doubted. He may begin to feel that no matter how transparent or trustworthy he is, it will never be enough to satisfy her doubts. This lack of trust forces him to operate in an environment of emotional strain where his actions are constantly scrutinized and mistrusted. When trust is lacking, a man may start to become defensive or withdrawn. He feels as though he needs to protect himself from unwarranted accusations or scrutiny, which causes emotional walls to go up. This withdrawal may not always be overt. Instead, it can manifest as a subtle distancing from the relationship. The more a man feels that his partner doubts him, the more he retreats emotionally. He may begin to avoid discussing important matters or expressing his thoughts and feelings, not because he wants to, but because he feels that no matter what he says, it will not be trusted. The emotional intimacy that once existed between the partners begins to fade, and the relationship starts to feel more like an obligation or a constant battle. A lack of trust can leave a man feeling like his character is constantly being questioned, even if he has done nothing to warrant suspicion. This continual undermining of his integrity can lead to feelings of shame and frustration. Over time, a man may start to internalize these doubts, believing that there must be something wrong with him for his partner to constantly doubt his honesty. This breeds insecurity as he starts to question not just his actions, but his own moral compass and his ability to be a trustworthy individual. His confidence diminishes as he no longer feels secure in who he is or in the value of his relationship. When trust is repeatedly broken or never established, it also creates a sense of emotional distance that further undermines a man's confidence. He may feel like he's walking on eggshells, constantly trying to prove his loyalty and trustworthiness, which is exhausting and mentally draining. The constant need to reassure someone of your intentions can lead to emotional burnout, leaving the man feeling drained and disconnected from the relationship. He may question whether he is truly loved and valued or if his partner will always see him through the lens of doubt. This lack of emotional safety can eventually cause him to withdraw completely, as he no longer feels like he can be his authentic self without the fear of being doubted or misunderstood. The result is a loss of connection, emotional fatigue, and a deepening sense of insecurity. Dismissiveness is one of the most damaging behaviors in a relationship because it communicates that a man's thoughts, feelings, and needs are unimportant. When a woman is dismissive, whether through words, actions, or body language, it creates an emotional environment where the man feels invisible or insignificant. The effects of this can be profound, leading to a decline in his self-worth, emotional withdrawal, and a growing distance between the partners. Dismissiveness may not always be overt or aggressive, but the subtle signs like ignoring his opinions, brushing off his concerns, or treating him as though his input doesn't matter can have a significant impact on a man's confidence over time. A man's desire for connection and validation in a relationship is natural, and when his partner dismisses him, it triggers feelings of isolation and inadequacy. Being dismissed means that his thoughts and emotions aren't acknowledged or respected, and this lack of validation can leave him questioning his worth, both within the relationship and beyond. It's not just about the specific words that are said, it's the underlying message that no matter what he says or does, it won't matter. Over time, this consistent lack of recognition chips away at his confidence, making him feel like his voice doesn't count. It's emotionally exhausting for him as he is left constantly trying to express himself only to feel like no one is listening or paying attention to what he needs. Dismissiveness also leads to frustration. When a man feels dismissed, he starts to lose the motivation to communicate openly or to share his feelings. If his concerns are ignored or treated as insignificant, he may begin to retreat inwardly, feeling that there is no point in trying to express himself at all. This can create a rift in the relationship as communication breaks down. Instead of feeling heard and understood, he feels rejected and unimportant. He may stop sharing his thoughts, emotions, or vulnerabilities, which only deepens the emotional gap between him and his partner. When a man feels dismissed, he may also begin to feel like he is not enough. Whether it's in terms of his achievements, his personality, or his efforts within the relationship, being dismissed makes him question whether he is doing things right or whether he's even worthy of love and respect. The repeated experience of being overlooked or belittled sends a message that he doesn't matter, which can erode his sense of self-worth. Over time, this internalized message leads to self-doubt and insecurity, affecting how he sees himself in all aspects of his life, not just in the relationship. Dismissiveness can also cause emotional withdrawal. A man who feels continually dismissed may begin to protect himself by emotionally shutting down. He might stop sharing his inner thoughts and feelings, believing that no matter how much he opens up, it won't make a difference. This withdrawal is a defense mechanism. He stops being vulnerable because vulnerability has been met with rejection. The emotional connection that was once there starts to fade, and the man begins to distance himself, leading to a strained and fractured relationship. The long-term effects of dismissiveness are damaging not just to a man's emotional well-being, but also to the health of the relationship itself. Over time, being consistently dismissed creates a toxic dynamic where both partners feel unappreciated and disconnected. This creates an environment where both people start to feel unsupported, misunderstood, and alone. The dismissal of a man's thoughts and feelings undermines the trust and emotional bond that is necessary for a strong, thriving relationship. Without this mutual respect and validation, the emotional safety that both partners need to thrive in the relationship is compromised, leading to a breakdown of communication, trust, and intimacy. So let's be mindful of how we speak to the men in our lives. Let's help them stand tall by being their pillar of support, by showing respect for their feelings, and by valuing who they are. A confident man is unstoppable, and a woman who knows how to nurture that confidence, well, she's not just a partner, she's a force. Thank you.